Hey everybody. Well, I've got two classic pedals here, or two versions of a classic pedal, which is the Big Muff. And of course, they've come out with so many different Big Muffs over the years, I lose track. But the classic Big Muff is, to me, probably the greatest fuzz in rock and roll history. I haven't tried. But we got a couple Big Muffs here. They have so many, but I happen to have two handy. The Nano Big Muff, which is, I think, $80, $90 new. You can't go wrong. And then I bought this Big Muff, which is the big box. Now, they've got a bunch of other ones. I used to have a little Big Muff, which was kind of like in between. And anything got so beat up, it was just a joke. But it still sounded great. But definitely one of the greatest fuzz pedals ever. So let's try them out. I'll tell you what, when I play with this big one, I'm going to be using the Electro Harmonix guitar strap. And then when I play with the Nano Big Muff, I'll be playing with this leather strap. So that's how you'll be able to tell the difference. Great. But I thought we'd do Big Muff versus Big Muff. The Nano Big Muff. And this Big Muff, which I don't think is, I don't know. They have other ones. And they have a bunch of Big Muffs with two sides to them, almost like a multi-effects pedal, and I've never tried one of those. But you came out with the fuzz face, and that was great. And you hear that on like early Hendrix, that type of fuzz, like around 1967, 68, Jefferson Airplane, Steppenwolf. But then right as the 70s were dawning, Electro Harmonix came out with the Big Muff, and I just think it was a great game changer. It's a great fuzz. And I've had several different Big Muffs over the years. But I've been using the Keeley Dark Side a little bit more. I really haven't been using the Big Muff since the pandemic much, because the Keeley Dark Side has that delay on it, and I can just kind of use that one pedal a lot. And it's based on a 1977 Big Muff. Let's see what we think. Well, my final thoughts are you couldn't go wrong with either of these. You know what? I don't think this one sounded inferior. This one had a little bit more of a snap to it, maybe. A little bit more of a... Maybe I didn't have... You know, those are the settings I was using, so you can see them right there. I noticed when I got up to this one, I turned up the sustain a little bit. On this one, I left it, you know, right there. And on this one, I felt like to kind of get a comparable sound, I had to turn up the sustain a little bit. But the volume and the tones are in about the same place. I think this one... I think this one had a little bit more of a, maybe a clarity to it. I don't want to say trebly, but it had a little bit more treble in it. But you know what? This one sounded great, and I love this. And you know, it's 80 bucks, and you can't go wrong. So if you just want a Big Muff, I don't know why you'd buy one of those other ones, because this thing does the job. This thing is unbelievable. Meaning it's next to nothing. You could probably buy a used one of these for 50 bucks. And it's basically one of the best fuzzes in the history of rock and roll. So, couldn't go wrong with either of these, but I'm just looking at it. I thought this one had a little bit different quality to the tone. I didn't think so at first. At first, I was going to say they were pretty much the same. But I thought this one had a little bit different quality to the tone, a little bit more of a kind of a ring to it. I won't say trebly, but it had a little bit of a ring to it. But, you know, I always loved the way the fuzz, there's a kind of mellowness to fuzz. You know, I think people always think it's so heavy and harsh, but there's a mellowness to fuzz. It gives you that kind of cello, particularly these Big Muffs, they give you that kind of cello, creamy sustain, and you just can't go wrong. And that's what I look for in a fuzz. I think the Keeley Dark Side has that. And I haven't, there are so many fuzzes out there. But I'm always going to come back to the Big Muff. And this would be fine. One other thing is it's huge. It's massive. Now, neither of them seem to take those big wall wart Electro Harmonix power adapters, which is good. That's one drawback to Electro Harmonix. They always have those big adapters. But they're both great. I would just say this is a lot bigger, and it's probably clunkier to have on a pedal board. And this one is smaller. You could takes less space on your pedal board, and I don't think it's inferior. I guess if you were a cork sniffer tone snob, you might this one had a little bit of a clarity to it, but really I thought this one kind of just had that velvety sound, maybe as much or more than that big one. But to me, that's like a fuzz, is velvety. In fact, now that I think about it, velvet is kind of fuzz, isn't it? Doesn't velvet have a kind of... So this one had that kind of velvety sound, I thought. And you know what? You don't need a compressor, I don't think, with one of these. And I also noticed all those compressors say sustain, you know. And if you look up sustain on Sweetwater Guitar Center website, they'll always have a lot of compressors. But, you know, they have some Big Muffs in there under sustain, and that's sustain. You get sustain on this thing. I don't think if you don't need a compressor with these things. Thanks. But this one, I mean, if I were buying, I'd just buy this because it's small, super affordable, and I mean, what's not to like, you know? I mean, I can't really think of anything negative about it. I don't think its small size really hinders it from being a good fuzz in any way. Plus, it's, you know, half the size of this thing. So yeah, I'm going to go with this. a crazy deal, really, when you think about it. One of the great sounds of rock and roll history. Thanks. God bless.